So, thank you for coming. I know it's like 5:30 on a long day, so I really appreciate you being here, and thank you for coming to see my talk on essentially diversity within technology. So, first question is, who am I and why am I even qualified to talk about this? So what you might have gathered from the fact that I'm on stage is, yes, I'm a technologist, and yes, I work with Java. But what you might not have gathered is I actually came from a biology background. So I didn't come from a comp sci degree at all. I'd done very little programming before I got to IBM, where I currently work, mostly because computing just wasn't an option offered in my school. Coding wasn't offered, and the basic computing we did learn was how to use an Excel spreadsheet. So not particularly useful when it came to learning Java at IBM. So I'm going to talk to you today basically about what I now do. So do initiatives with children to encourage more diversity within tech. So first things first, can you all take a second and think of a famous, or maybe your favorite, computer scientist? Hold it in your mind. Did anyone think of Alan Turing? Yep, got a couple in the room. Anyone think of Bill Gates? No. Anyone think of Steve Jobs? No. These are just some of the examples I had of quite commonly thought of male computer scientists. Did anyone think of this lady here? Yay, because it's Ada Lovelace Day. So happy Ada Lovelace Day. The issue we sometimes face when I often do this talk is when people think of famous computer scientists, it's not necessarily women that jump to mind. And that's mostly because we've not necessarily been we've not really been put forward in the computer science community, except people like Ada Lovelace, for example, Grace Hopper. There are very few historical female role models within this space. So this is an issue that we're facing in today's society, which often means that the stereotype that young girls get is that females don't belong in the tech world. So how can we change this? Well, the problem usually starts at school age. So at GCSE age, which in the UK is when you're about 13, 14 years old, you start to look at GCSE options. So at GCSE, it's actually a 50% ratio, 50 to 50 with girls and boys. And girls actually outperform boys in most of the STEM subjects. But when you look at A-levels, that drops by half. So that drops to 24% at A-levels, which is when they're about 17, 18 in the UK. And then if we look even further, that drops to a further 7% in higher education. That's a huge jump from 50 to 7. On top of that, when asked what would be their first career choice, most females in university that were surveyed, out of all of them, only 3% said they'd consider a career in technology as their first choice career. That's an extreme drop from 50 to 3%. So it's clearly a big problem, both in the fact that we've got these young girls dropping off and in the fact that we have this lack of role models. So why do we even care about this? So I put up some stuff on the board here, but basically research has shown that diversity isn't just about inclusivity and including everyone in the roles that they want to do. It has an effect on business, so and on the global economics. So in 2020, the European Commission has predicted that there'll be a shortage of 500,000 digital workers. And if we're not taking workers from both sides of the population, from males and females, we're going to have an even bigger gap in terms of our skills shortages and in terms of really getting as much as we can out of these job shortages. There was also a study done by McKinsey. If anyone's heard of McKinsey, basically they said that if we had gender parity in the workforce, it could add up by 2025 to a total of $28 trillion put into the GDP worldwide. So it's not just about the fact that it would increase, the fact that it is an important issue in terms of our society, but it's going to have business value as well. On top of that, you've got greater innovation. Having a more diverse workforce helps us to increase this innovation within our products. So has anyone ever used Apple Health or know of the application? Yeah, a few hands going up, a few nods. So Apple Health, actually, when they released it for the first time, they claimed to have everything you could possibly need within their application to be able to diagnose prematurely conditions or diseases and to help monitor your health. What they didn't have was a period tracker, because there were hardly any female engineers working on the application. And as a lot of females may know, and a lot of males may know as well, because they may have daughters or wives, or even know from their mothers, actually periods are one of the first signs of conditions or disease, like anorexia, for example. When you start becoming anorexic, you lose your period. So to not have that in the application was a huge downfall of it. So you can see how having a diverse workforce can really help in making sure our applications provide the best user experience. So what have we done within IBM? I'm going to show you 3 examples. They're kind of 3 different tiers of projects that we've worked on that maybe you can imitate within your own companies or get involved in with yourself to help increase the diversity. So the examples that I've chosen are specifically tailored towards increasing the female diversity within the workforce. Obviously, it's not the only point where we are lacking in terms of our technology workforce in general, but it's the one that I tend to be most passionate about, so I get involved in a lot. So, did anyone hear about the IBM Disney Marvel collaboration? Maybe through kids or anything? No, probably because we advertise to kids. So it's basically a collaboration we did between IBM, Disney, Marvel, and STEM Learning. So has anyone seen the Captain Marvel film? Great, nods, fantastic. I've got nerds in the room, that's what I want. So we partnered with them, and for the release of Captain Marvel, we essentially ran a competition to try and encourage more girls to use AI to make the world a better place. So to do that, we had to make a promo video. So you can see my glamorous makeup going on. We basically selected a few IBMers who generally use AI within their work, and we created a video to try and encourage the girls to participate in the challenge. So the criteria was they had to be within the ages of 11 to 14, they had to be female, and they had to be in groups between 2 and 5. They could use any ideas, they could tackle any topics they wanted to, but it had to include AI. So we created this video with Disney, who filmed us, and this was the result.
The world is full of heroes, superheroes, and real-life heroes.
We're bringing humans and machines together to make better decisions.
I use artificial intelligence to help athletes go higher, further and faster.
I invent ways to help save endangered animals.
We're challenging girls 11 to 14 to lead the future in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Gather your friends and channel your superpowers to bring us your AI idea that could change the world.
AI stands for artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is when a machine is able to mimic human intelligence and it's able to think and make decisions for itself.
One winning team will work with IBM and bring their idea to life.
You should definitely participate in this challenge because it gives you a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come up with crazy but amazing ideas that we'd be able to implement and make the world a better place.
Visit girlswhochangethworld.org.uk to enter now. Take on the challenge and be a hero.
Dramatic, but effective, right? So we actually predicted that we'd get about maybe 50 entries in total. It exploded on us. We ended up getting 200 entries from groups of girls across the country. And from those 200 entries, we picked our top 10 finalists based on a proposal that they'd sent us. So we had both technical judges from STEM Learning, IBM and Disney collaborate together to select these finalists. The fact that we had 200 girls apply really shows that girls are interested in combining tech to be able to solve these worldwide challenges that they see in their everyday life. So it was amazing for us to see this amount of effort put in and the amount of girls interested in this space and technology. So these were our top 10 finalists. They ranged from coming from all the way from Manchester to locally in London as well. And we invited these top 10 finalists to come to a meeting point in London to essentially get some training on AI and to meet a business and a technical mentor that would be assigned to each team. So we had this semi-finalist day, and we taught the girls important skills, like design thinking, for example, to really get inside the mentality of who would be impacted by their project or their idea. We also so I ran an AI workshop, which I'll tell you about later, and I'll link to the workshop that I used. We also explained to them the importance of creative storytelling. So we had Disney tell them how having an impactful story can really make the difference between a successful project that gets funding, for example, and one that doesn't. And when we taught that, that's how startups get their money. So we essentially gave the girls a range of tools from soft skills to hard skills in engineering around Scratch and AI. And then we assigned them mentors. So each team was assigned a business mentor and a technical mentor to mentor them for 6 weeks to take their project from this conceptualized idea all the way through to a proof of concept demonstration. So once those 6 weeks had passed, we had our finalist day, and we invited the girls back to London. And when they came back to London, they essentially got the chance to present in front of judges their project and where they'd taken it from start to finish. And it was incredible to see what they'd achieved in these 6 weeks. Some of the girls had produced 3D printed glasses, for example. So the projects that the girls were working on were really hard-hitting issues. It included tackling knife crime, how to create greener, cleaner streets. They were tackling anorexia, mental health disorders, how to help the visually impaired. So they weren't easy subjects to help solve. They were really difficult issues within society that these girls just weren't afraid to tackle. So, yeah, some of the girls created like 3D glasses, for example, to help the visually impaired. What that group was doing was actually using AI to pick out objects in front of a visually impaired person, translate that into audio for the visually impaired person to be able to hear to describe the scene around them. And they were able to produce a working concept in 6 weeks at the age of 14, in between their GCSEs. So it was really impressive to see. We also had girls using Scratch. Has anyone heard of Scratch before? Yeah, so for those of you who haven't, it's like a drag and drop version of coding. Makes it a lot easier for younger kids to be able to get their heads around because they don't have to write in Python or JavaScript or anything like that. They can just drag and drop blocks that represent if statements, for statements, etc., etc. So they were able to use that, and the winning team was this team in the corner up here. That's Team Artemis, and what they created was they used Scratch and Node-RED, so they used a combination of the two. Node-RED is extremely similar. Again, drag and drop blocks. They used Node-RED and they integrated it into Watson APIs, and they were actually able to create a chatbot to help those with mental health issues to act as a friend, essentially, and give advice when they were stressed or whether they had specific mental health disorders. So that was their project. We actually invited them back to IBM, and they're currently working with IBMers to try and make their idea a reality. So we were able to impact all of the girls within the teams and help them create a project from scratch using AI in 6 weeks. So the girls, it was amazing to see, and the girls were extremely enthusiastic about the competition, saying things like, oh, now I want a job in tech, and I can't wait to start coding more. It was amazing to see. So these are some of the business and technical mentors that we had there on the day. Like you can see, we had a mix of girls and guys, and we had a mix of age ranges and a mix of experience. So really trying to show the girls that there isn't just one career in technology. So this was the result from the final day.
Promoting girls in STEM will help to create a more gender-equal world. At GCSE level, girls make up only 20% of computing students. At A level, this is even lower, at only 12%. This trend continues into the workplace. We're on a mission to change that. This partnership between IBM, Marvel Studios and STEM Learning proactively addresses the gender imbalance. Throughout this challenge, these girls have been using AI working with IBM to tackle real-world problems. It's so important that young women have role models to look up to, and that companies like IBM continue to support programs such as this and make STEM accessible and attractive to girls of all backgrounds.
Our idea is a sound system which helps reduce loneliness.
There's a bin bot that manoeuvres around the streets.
A way to improve the quality of life for visually impaired people.
There's an idea that will transport period pads to the...
It will help refugees learn a language in their new country.
All about helping patients with anorexia.
To monitor knife crime and a scanner to help dyslexia.
A virtual teaching assistant.
A mobile app that tackles mental health.
Everything we've learnt along the way is very important. It's all about working as a team, cooperating and collaborating with each other.
Once I actually did it, I was like, wow, I did not know I could do this.
Doing this competition makes me feel empowered as a woman because as a whole we are fighting against stereotypes, and I think that's really cool.
I hope that all of the finalists learn that they should feel empowered by whatever superpower they have.
They can do these things, that they have got that power in their hands, but also learn the vast potential of technology in themselves.
They should harness that power and go forth and just embrace it.
The winner is Artemis with Our Buddy. Well done.
I feel really happy.
I'm really excited to go to IBM Labs because it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Congratulations guys, you did absolutely amazing. I'm so proud of you and I hope you go on to have great futures.
This competition is a way of IBM passing on our passion for solving problems with STEM to the next generation.
From a very basic knowledge of programming and STEM, you can achieve quite a lot.
For over a century, IBM has worked with clients across multiple industries to lead the way in solving real-world problems. Girls like this are the future leaders.
We can change the world!
Again, dramatic, but it puts across a point. The girls had the best time, and it was only 6 weeks of our time, right? It was just volunteering, but we were able to show the girls that, as they said, with a basic amount of programming, they can actually achieve an awful lot, and it's not as hard as they might once have thought. That's all well and good, and the competition was a huge success. But what happens when you're not a multi-million-pound corporation and you don't exist all over the world, for example, and you don't have the budget that we necessarily had for this? Well, there are other things you can do. So there's something called Thingkaity that we run every year. So Thingkaity is essentially a smaller version of this. So it started in 2011 and we've been running it for 8 years now. What we do is we invite local school children around the age of 13 to come to the school to experience what it would be like to be in a startup, for example, and to create an idea, again, around really tough issues. So it's a 2-day event. We run it twice, so it lasts for 4 days in total. We invite the local secondary schools, so I think there was about 11 different schools participating in the last year, and they're all year 8 girls. So yeah, we get 11 schools, and we had over 90 students in total come to visit our Hersley labs. So essentially within this, we help them to develop coding skills and soft skills, and they end up creating, at the end of it, a website. So why run an event like this? Well, it helps to inspire them to have an interest in STEM from a young age, which, as we've already experienced, is a massive issue in our society at the moment. It helps them to develop these coding skills and introduces them to possible careers. So what's Thingkaity really like? Well, in short, chaos, utter chaos, but it's the best fun. So the girls essentially get given, each group gets given a different issue. So some of the girls might get poverty in a third world country, for example. Some of the girls might get what happens if you're in a flood, how can you help those who are in a natural disaster. Some of the girls might get bullying. So the topics really range, but each group will be given a different issue to try and solve. They can use any tech they like, and they get given a mentor for the day to help them through it. Again, we teach them design thinking skills, we teach them skills such as HTML, CSS, and a basic JavaScript. And then we also give them fun activities. So we did a murder mystery using code. So they've got to try and solve code problems to figure out who the murderer is. And we get about 7 different IBMers dressed up as different characters, and the girls have to interview them. And it's a really fun way of showing them that coding doesn't just have to be serious. So we do fun activities like that, and we also take them on tours around the labs. So as I said, we teach them multiple languages. So we have a CSS, basically like a quick intro to CSS and a quick intro to HTML. We give them some cheat sheets to help them along the way as well. And we also introduce them to Node-RED and through that JavaScript. So by using these tools, the girls are actually able, in literally an afternoon, were able to create their own website and deploy it on the cloud. So in just about 3 hours, the girls were able to produce their own websites, design them, and put up the information from their projects on these websites. Something that we introduced this year to try and introduce the girls to more career opportunities was a career session. So has anyone ever seen or heard of or done speed dating? Yeah, I can see smiles. You guys know what it is. So speed dating is essentially you sit across someone and you have maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes to talk to them to find out more about them, and then you switch to the next person. We copied that template, and instead of speed dating, we call it speed networking. So essentially we get one person who's an IBMer from multiple different roles, and then we introduce them to the girls, and the girls got 10 minutes with each mentor, and they switched between the different mentors. So we ranged from architects through to software developers, through to testers, project managers, people managers, to really show them that technology is not just someone in a dark room coding. So the girls really appreciated learning from the different people and being able to ask questions freely. But that's something that we introduced this year to be able to try and broaden their horizons and really give them a thorough overview as to what technology is really like. So this was the feedback from the event. The graphs are kind of hard to read, but essentially the top graphs are pre-event and the bottom graphs are post-event. So the important parts are these. So you can see that when we asked them how interested they found technology and science, the majority were like, yeah, I think it's okay. And yet by the end of the event, we had the majority saying they were really interested in STEM. And then when we asked them specifically how they felt about programming and coding, again, we got the same story. The amount of people who said they really liked it went up by a huge amount. So this was the technology that we got back, but in terms of soft skills that we also taught them. So during the event, we asked the girls to stand up and present their ideas. We also split the girls up. So we deliberately made sure that no two girls from the same school were in the same project group. That's because we wanted to teach them that's what happens in real life. You join a job and you don't know anyone within that team, right? You go to uni, you get put in different projects where you don't know people. So we were trying to teach them skills in regards to being able to work with people that they haven't necessarily worked with before or know very well, as well as teaching them presentation skills and being able to tell that story in an engaging way. So as you can see again, how comfortable do you feel with presenting? Most of them were actually in the bottom end for this question before the event. And after the event, most of them chose 3 and 4. So a really good result from that. And also, how well do you feel you work as part of a team? This was kind of mixed before the event. After the event, again, a huge increase in the number of girls who said that they'd be happy to work in a team that they didn't necessarily know before. This is the part that we care about, though. This was the feedback we got from the day itself. So we asked the girls to fill out a questionnaire at the end and to write their comments. And these are some of the comments that we had back from it. My favourite part was when one of the girls that we've been mentoring during the day came up to me and said, "How do I get a job at IBM?" I was like, "Great, yes, please. Go and finish your school first, but then please come back." So we had this awesome feedback where they said, now I wanted a job in physics, but now I just want to work in a tech company. Jobs, things like, I hope I get to do this more in the future. The fact that they really enjoyed it and they're now considering a career in technology means the event was a massive success. We wanted to show them that no matter how much experience they'd had before, or no matter the fact that they might have once thought it was just a coder in a dark room, they can maybe consider themselves to be in a role within tech and maybe pursue those passions further into higher education. So that was the second project that we do on a yearly basis. One that's maybe a bit easier to do and a bit easier to organise. This is the third thing we do. So this is, again, shrinking in size. So this is just something we run on a weekly or monthly basis in local schools. We mostly aim this at about primary school age, so between the ages of 7 to 12 or 13. So Machine Learning for Kids is actually a bunch of workshops that a fellow colleague of mine in IBM developed. So we developed Machine Learning for Kids to basically use Scratch to be able to teach children about machine learning concepts and AI. So what it is again, it's just a drag and drop on Scratch. The children get worksheets that they get to work through. So if you go to machinelearningforkids.com, you'll find the worksheets. They've been translated into, I think it's something like 14 different languages now. So if English is not yours or your kids' first languages, then it's a great way to be able to teach them machine learning. And essentially, we go into schools and we run these workshops for about an hour each. And the workshops vary. So some of the workshops are, can you get a computer to recognize the difference in photos between a car or a cup? Or can you teach the computer to play rock, paper, scissors against you? So the children have to train the machine learning model essentially with training data. So we encourage sometimes girls, but often we do it in mixed schools, it doesn't really matter. We encourage the children to put pictures of their fists in different positions to teach the computer that a fist doesn't always look like that. We also teach them that if they're doing words, for example, so we have a really fun game where we teach them to basically make the sorting hat in Harry Potter. So they have to take quotes from the books, so quotes specific from Gryffindors or Ravenclaws or Slytherins. And they have to really make them stereotypical, so make a really mean one for a Slytherin, for example. And what they do is they then categorize that, and we teach the children to really try and make sure that their training data is as varied as possible. So we usually do a couple of iterations. So the kids will usually do it once, find out that they might have an edge case that doesn't quite know or get it right, and then we encourage the children to go back and improve their training data. That way they learn that that's basically what we do in real life. In real life machine learning models, it doesn't always get it right. We have to go back and continually train our data. So we're teaching the children about the fact that we need training data for machine learning. We're teaching them about the different machine learning models out there. So, for example, natural language processing, visual recognition, audio to text, text analytics. We teach them a broad variety of skills. Sometimes we'll do it as a whole day workshop and we'll go through multiple worksheets. Other times we'll just do an hour. So this is a really easy way of going into schools and spending just an hour of your time doing one of these workshops. Again, all the worksheets are free online, and if you want to contribute, please do, because they're always looking for new ideas. So what happens if you don't necessarily have the time to organise all of this? It does take a bit of organisation, and it does take a bit of paperwork. Well, there are loads of organisations out there that organise these events already. So if you're keen to get involved, but you don't necessarily want to organise it yourself, loads of these organisations organise it for you, and you can just volunteer your time to go along. So if you go onto their website, and if you go onto the STEM Ambassador website, STEM Ambassadors are a national organisation who organise events like this that you can go and help out at and volunteer at. Some of these initiatives also offer mentorships and internships. So if you know of someone who's maybe, these are mostly female orientated, so increasing female diversity within tech. And if you know of anyone within that age bracket, or anyone, like a school, for example, that would be interested, these are great websites to point them to or direct them to. Now, I've spoken a lot about female diversity within this industry, and it is a topic that I care about. I was the only female graduate in my intake out of 35 at IBM, so coming from a biology degree where I was pretty much only with girls, it was a bit of a shock to the system, especially because in my experience, I haven't ever had that. So it is a topic that's close to my heart, which is why I personally get involved in a lot of these initiatives. You might have seen my face in some of the videos. But it's not just about female diversity. It's about complete and utter inclusion within our tech industry. So, for example, there was a website that was looking at input of details, for example. So you had to input your name. And actually, they didn't have a very diverse team. So what happened was they'd limited the number of characters you could put in for your surname. And for example, often in Spain, for example, they have multiple surnames strung together. Now that was an issue because they couldn't put their surnames into the system because no one had accounted for someone having a name longer than a certain number of characters. So inclusion really means having a variety of backgrounds, both socio-economic, maybe where you're from, maybe what gender you are, maybe what sexuality you are. It's having complete and utter inclusion is what we need in our tech industry to really get the most out of our user experience and to make our applications the best they can possibly be. So there are some other projects that you can look at if you're interested in other kinds of increasing diversity of other kinds. So for example, the Hidden Genius project focuses on increasing black males within the tech industry. So they actually run an event here in London on Monday, and I think they're also running another one in a few weeks' time if you're interested in getting involved in that. As I said, the STEM ambassadors, they're not specific to female diversity. They're just trying to help more kids get interested in STEM. So they really do a huge variety of projects and initiatives. And then Colour in Tech is a very similar project to the Hidden Genius project. Again, same sort of aims and issues. So these, again, are just some that I've heard of. They're not a complete list of initiatives out there. There are tons if you start Googling. I haven't put them all up here because it would flood you guys. So if you're interested in having a go but don't want to organise, have a look at some of these websites. Or if you do want to run an event, I've put some useful links up there. My slides will all be online. I'll be sharing them on my Twitter. So if you guys do want to access them, you can follow the link through my Twitter. But these are some of the useful websites where I've got worksheets from or activities from for when I'm going to schools and organising these events. Or if you just want to reach out directly to me with a question or a specific request, or maybe you've got an idea that you want to put forward, please do get in contact with me either through LinkedIn or Twitter. So that's kind of the end of my talk. I finished slightly early, sorry, but it means you get to go home early. But if anyone has any questions, I can take them now because we've got a bit of time. Or I've stunned you all into silence.